A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams. Okay, quiet. Hey, quiet. Stood out towards me.
Ow! No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
Thank you for taking time again to meet with us to talk about Due West. I'm Brock. This is Jason from Horse and Hound. I'm going to make that joke again.
I love it, though.
Right? I know. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
Right?
see, he gets it.
It's very similar to this movie, you know.
Again, I was
Romantic comedy. Yep.
I was telling Adrianne yesterday that I was going to make that joke until someone got it, and she got it like right away. Right?
And then when she got it, you said, "Whoopsie daisies."
I said, I'm just a boy. But no, sorry. To be serious, so movies are empathy machines, and I think one of the ways that Due West is so effective in this is that it trusts its audience. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't sort of give too much away. It relies on nuance and insinuations. And in that way, it never becomes didactic or a polemic, right? Where the film is shaking someone's lapel saying, this is my message, right? Listen to me. But rather it leans into the humanness of the story. So not really a question, but more of a statement, looking for a comment.
Yeah, I mean, my writing partner, Hardy, and I, we had been through the system a lot, doing rewrites and taking on the notes and doing all those kinds of things. And from jump, the idea with this movie was that we were going to make it without any interference. And so once we knew we were going to do that, we just made a conscious decision that we were going to have trust and be like, we're not going to tell the audience they're going to get it, they're going to find it, we'll be subtle, we'll be those things. And if that doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But that's the shot that we were going to take. And I think it drew some people in. I mean, I remember actually the first time I talked to Henry, like one of the later parts of the movie is like 7 lines. And that was one of the things that Henry was like, yeah, that's why I'm interested in doing the movie. Like, I feel like the other version of this is like monologues and whatever. And I was like, no, it's just going to be this. And like, we're either going to be good with this or we're going to fail with this. And it was just having that trust from the beginning was always the way it was going to be, you know.
And I think viewers like us, right, really appreciate that kind of challenge as well, right, of not being hit over the head with something. And so often that just falls flat, right, where the message now kind of rises up organically, right? And of course, we're smart enough to understand all the stuff that's going on, right? We see Austin's character, and we know exactly who that guy is and like what part he's playing in this story without ever having to be told, right? And I think that's testament to the writing, the acting, and like the story overall.
Thank you.
Thanks. So you guys all have Texas roots, and I know, so is there anything that you feel is inherently, knowing that we have a near total abortion ban and 56% rise in maternal mortality rate, it's a little heavy for a Saturday morning, but
Sadly.
but is there anything inherently Texas about this story or why you wanted to set it here in Texas, aside from you just being a Texan, or all 3 of you too?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely Texas through and through, like all the people involved, like, you know, even Henry is Texas roots and grew up in Texas. When you were coming home to do the film, like this was also born out of Annie and I had done a short film that was in Austin, and it was like, can we use the same group of Texans to do something else? And I think, made a joke because we knew we were going to be crying a lot with Hardy at the beginning. It was like, all right, that was talking about guns and school shootings, and I was like, what's one thing that's more polarizing than guns? And he was like, abortion? You want to do a movie about abortion?
And we should write it for Annie.
Yeah, I said, yeah. We should write it for Annie, and she's going to really love us because we pushed her hard last time, but this time we can be even worse. But no, it really came from that, and across the board, like the crew, everybody, like there's no way that you make this movie at the price point that we made this movie without having a whole bunch of people who just rallied behind it. And I think they did that because they were Texans. They wanted to use the thing they know how to do, whether that be being a gaffer or whatever it is, to be like, I can do the thing that I want to do to put something good out into the world and try to have a adult conversation about it, as you're saying, instead of yell at each other from across the internet and be like, oh, this and that, and it was just like everybody bought in really early. It was like, we will not be doing that, and I think it's been helpful for the film.
Yeah, and I think also, it's like when you tell a human story, right, it gives a window into it puts the audience in a place where they can understand an issue maybe that they haven't looked at from that perspective before, or they have not thought about it personally other than, no, I'm against that, or I would never do that, or whatever it may be. And the thing that struck me when I read the script, like Annie's character, small town people with problems, and how do you solve them? Well, you have your community, and you have your friends, and you have your family, and that's a real Texas story. That's like that's the experience. It's a bunch of people out in an inhospitable place where they don't really belong, with everything trying to kill them, and that's how you survive.
Yeah, and I think congratulations for you guys getting the film made, especially in Texas.
That was hard.
Yeah,
I felt like Evan and I against the world, honestly, because he showed me the script, shows up with a bottle of Tito's and pretty much, and smokes. He's like, here, just read this. And I was like, okay. I'm like, you don't have to convince me to want to do this movie. I already knew I wanted to do the movie.
But I was like, no, I'll come back later. I can't just read this and I'm going to disappear from
and
it.
I needed that bottle of Tito's. Okay, so no, it took me a few days to actually call him back because I was so struck with this film. And again, I have very few things in the world that I know. It was I needed to be an actor was one of them, and we needed to make this movie was the other. And it's that became the mission. And so, yes, and finding the money in Texas is very difficult for this specific topic. But we met the challenge, and we did it, and we found amazing people to work with, and we had people like Henry come on, and again, it is a movie about community. It is about community. And I think that every single screening we've had, I've had people come up to me from the other side, usually men, just saying that they finally understood something, and it was a conversation that they were open to now because of the way it was told and because it didn't beat you over the head. And that's the whole point of this movie, really, is just to start the conversation.
Yeah, and that's amazing because, and that was going to kind of lead into my next question about the message. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but there's 55 cities in Texas right now, and 2 of them just this past week signed ordinances to be sanctuaries of the unborn, to basically specifically target people who are helping women go to New Mexico and have, and to get the medical care that they actually need. So I'm glad to hear, and can you speak a little bit more to my question would have been, if someone's so staunchly on the other side of this issue, and I know you wanted to spark conversation, but what do you really hope they take away from this, aside from, your messaging?
I think that, in talking about the sanctuaries and what that is, my wife and I spent a lot of time out in West Texas. I'm from the Texas Panhandle, so I'm a small town kid originally, and I won't say too much because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I met some people that were out there who were doing this work, and that was part of the inspiration of doing this. And so, that's always going to exist. There's always going to be that community that are doing those types of things. As far as people who are staunchly on one side or another, I think we know at this point that there's probably a slice on deep sides of either places that like they're never going to change exactly what they think. But I think what we have failed to understand, we've liked to say that everybody's either one of those things, and I think there's a big slice in like the middle area here that has maybe a feeling and is like, yeah, it should be this or it should be this, but haven't really delved into it, maybe haven't been affected by it personally. And I think that is a large group of people that can have a conversation, and I think that group is way bigger than either polls that are going to have that thing, who are really right now getting to drive what's happening, what's being talked about. And so our hope is that we get the, regular folks who are there and that we find our way. I mean, the movie, one of the things I'm most proud about in the whole film is that beyond even what Annie was saying about like, oh, there's people who were having conversations that they never were able to have before. It was mostly men. Like, there's also been a lot of people who have gone, oh, I really had judged that preacher wrong. I was judgmental. And they were thinking like, here's a movie that's just going to confirm everything and they had a different experience. And so like, if we can, see each other in a more human way and rid ourselves of some of that judgment, then like, that's, God's work, so to speak,
So that brings up a couple things. For me, one is how throughout the film, right, Annie, your character is helped by a lot of different women along the way, which I love. From the bartender, right, taking over his shift, to Sierra Bravo's character, like, giving your character a ride. The Nina helping out at the end, right? We have all these women helping women, which I think is really important to see on film, and it kind of, I think, helps to emphasize that bell hooks message of feminism is for everybody. But then at the end, we get Pastor Mike, who kind of gets to act as an ally, right? We get to see Pastor Mike act as an ally, someone who, again, we assume thinks and believes one thing, and probably does, but also understands it's not cut and dry. And there's some nuance here, and how can I help, right? And I think that's real. I would love to hear more, I think, about your approach to that character, and I think, also your character as well.
Well, I think for Mike, it's, he's very conflicted about it because on the one hand, he has a member of his flock that needs help, and that's his, prime directive. And that wins the day for him, right? Because he's doing his job. And, I think it's a certain amount of kind of like in parenting or anything, right? You give people the freedom of choice, right? And they take responsibility for their own decisions, right? Because I think it's a little backwards to say, like, well, you shouldn't have gotten into that situation in the first place, because maybe you feel like that, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help anybody, And if you're going to be a leader in your community, or you're going to help out, then you can't really deal in ultimatums. You have to deal in, prospective choices. So for Mike, he sees, a girl that he knows very well and personally, knows family, knows the interactions within the community, and he has the resolve to say she's a good person and she deserves help. And but it's a big deal for him. It's not an easy thing, and I don't think that he feels good about it at the end of the day, but I think it's the only choice that he can make.
I gave you a ride. That's like, it's honestly one of the most powerful, I think, lines in the film. I just gave you a ride.
Yeah.
Because it's true, like once he hears this, he's screwed if he does, he's screwed if he doesn't. Like, I mean, he's going to have to sit there and look at this girl every single day, watch her be more pregnant, watch her be more angry, or, you know, with a baby that she didn't ask for, you know? And it's really, you know, the rape is a real thing. And sadly, that happens to her more than once in this film. And as far as my character was concerned, it was just like about thinking about just getting to the next step. Like, that was the thing. Her whole thing was just getting there. And I think that was the most powerful part of the movie, too, is at the end, when they call her name, you don't know what she's going to do.
Right.
Because I don't know that she even thought about it, really. Like, she just had to get there.
And that's, I mean, we never feel like your character is like, oh, this is a simple decision. I know what I need to do. I just need to,
nobody's excited about abortion.
Let's go,
you know?
right? I know. It's like, this is fun, right?
Yeah, right?
Like, right, another Saturday.
It's like,
right,
it's a
Saturday
Tuesday,
afternoon,
it's fine.
Right?
Whatever.
And we get to, I mean, in the movie, it takes on a kind of a road trip structure as well. And I think we're all watching, hoping that it's a simple, like straightforward, okay, like this would be like an hour, right? Like, but we know kind of what's coming. We know there's going to be obstacles over and over. And of course, we're just crushed, I think, with each one, right? Because, I mean, I do feel like we are rooting for this character, whatever side of the fence we find ourselves on, right? And I think, again, that goes to speak to everything about the film.
And the hurdles, for sure. And I think that the way that Evan and Hardy wrote the script is actually great, too, because the way we really wanted to play it was, I mean, now everybody knows what the premise is, but we really wanted to play it like, we don't know what she's going to get. It could be drugs. It could be, you know what I mean? We don't know until we know. And, like, that's the point, too. She just has to get from one place to the next.
And if anyone's listening and they're going to go see it, you know, bring someone who doesn't know, and it will be totally
Yes, exactly.
a completely
Right.
different experience
Bring
for them.
4 people who
than
don't
it
know.
will be for you. But we hope and we think that it still can be a good experience if you know what's happening. But if you don't, it's a whole nother realm. But yeah, I mean it helps so much. And if you're going to make a smaller movie, like having just full on seasoned pros on the acting side changes everything, because then all that humanity that they both brought to these roles, and you don't have all the time in the world, and so when you get to start from wow, that could go in the movie as is, and then start to play from there, it just changes the whole dynamic, and a testament to the talent and the people who said, hey, I'll sign up.
And
for
it
this
helps
and go for
when one of your best friends is directing the movie. So he knows me better than anybody, really. So he also knows how to get in there, which is, I'd be doing something. I was like, I feel pretty good about this. And he'd come over and whisper something in my ear. I'm like, he's like, just keep it together,
that's what you
Palicki.
need.
Keep it together.
Right, that's what you need. Yeah.
Save it.
He probably knows how to protect you as well.
Yes, he does. It feels very safe. Feels very safe.
I think a lot of, besides your two characters, the third character in this film is not only Texas, but Marfa, Alpine, and those long stretches of road. Was that always the intent, is to kind of portray that loneliness and kind of isolation and utilizing those landscapes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm from the Texas Panhandle originally, and I have fallen in love with that area because it's kind of reminds me of where I grew up, but even prettier. And not that there's pretty parts of the Panhandle, but there's also lots of flat
What part of
nothingness
the
in the
Panhandle are
Panhandle.
you from? I'm sorry.
Pampa. It's
Okay,
northeast of Amarillo.
Yeah. Zach Thomas. So
That's who's the famous person from Pampa?
Evan Miller.
And Evan Miller.
If you were really old, it's Woody Guthrie, and if not, it's Zach Thomas. Like, that's it. But I couldn't set the movie there because it's very close to the line. But I was like, wow, there's this beautiful place that is so far away from any access. It's like 3.5 hours to the closest airport there. Like, so you really are set off from being able to just go somewhere, and then you have all those beautiful landscapes. And the idea that I talked about with Jonathan, my DP, right from jump, was like, hey, we have these and they are beautiful, but we can be beautiful, but it should be setting up the isolation of this character and what that is, because that is it. And as Henry said, which was in my head constantly, is that like there are people who live in places that we probably shouldn't be living in, and it forms a certain type of person that has a strength and a character and a thing to them, because like their forebears that lived in that place were almost like wiped off the map in the Dust Bowl or whatever the things were that were happening there. And so we definitely wanted to, have that feeling and of that sense of place.
And Evan was definitely fighting for that from the beginning, because we were thinking about, okay, we could shoot in Austin, it'd be cheaper than, moving everybody out to Marfa and the whole thing. But you were absolutely, it is a character in the movie. West Texas is an actual character in the film. So
and it's hard to shoot in the Panhandle because when the wind stops blowing, the crew falls
myself,
over.
So like,
crew falls over when the wind stops blowing. You got to start over.
Yeah, I'm from Amarillo, so I know all too well about the winds there. So
Did I tell you I published an essay about loneliness in Marfa? Right?
Yeah.
No. Did I tell you that? That wasn't like I didn't mean that as a shameless plug. I'm sorry. I realized as I was saying it, I'm like, don't say that. Too late. But I just mean that like the loneliness is a real thing out there on the stretch, even if you're not like
The
from there. But
isolation.
just going there, you're just like, oh God, this is horrible. I was already lonely, and now it's even worse, right? So,
and God forbid your car breaks down.
Right.
You're literally in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have, but yes. What I love, Annie, about your character so much is that there's never any waiver, right? I mean, like, yes, she has questions about what she's actually going to do, but getting to that point, even to the point where you knew what size of fan belt to get. So I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that like we are with you on your journey because we trust you and that you know best for yourself. Is there anything you wanted to kind of speak for? I mean, because your character's name is the woman, right? I mean, so I wanted to kind of speak to that kind of general.
She is
view, right?
she's a woman
Right.
in the world, and she's been taking care of herself her whole life. I mean, that's how she knows how to change her fan belt, and so this just speaks to another level of her trying to do the best thing for herself. But I mean, nobody really knows what that is. You just have to keep going until you get there. And so I'm so happy to hear that you're on that journey, because there are elements of her that are sometimes not likable. You know what I mean? She's a little hard, and she's not super kind at first, and she warms up, and you can see her starting to trust people. And the saddest part about it is when she finally does trust people, they take advantage of her. And so you see why she's been hardened too.
Well, thank you guys so much for the time, and congratulations again
Thank you.
on the film. It's really a wonderful piece of work. So happy that you got it made in Texas as well. So.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
In Texas, by Texans.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,